All right, so moving along. Julian G writes, Bill, everything I see here and find makes me believe that my generation, I'm 24, is one that believes there should be no consequence, accountability, or room for criticism. Even the slightest disagreement to a view is seen as hate, and no one should be able to think different than what is the hive mind. With my spoiled and decadent generation seeming so far gone, should we just abandon these grown children and put our hope in a free future in the next generation? Well, first of all, Julian, anybody who can write a letter, an email like that means the generation's not gone. Anybody who has that attitude is a good person, and you're obviously a good person. And the one thing we lose track of in the middle of all this wailing and gnashing of teeth is just how many good people there are out there. I think we're getting outnumbered, but we've always been outnumbered. The great thing about the truth is that the truth is an enormously powerful lever. You can't put darkness into a room. A little bit of light in a room chases out all the darkness. So let's talk about this issue about generations. I've been talking about parallel structures because things like homeschooling is a chance to get away from all of this indoctrination and so on and so on and so on. But what I would say politically is this. I do think that the people who are in their mid to late 20s by now, early 30s, have been so indoctrinated for so long that they vote for Obama for reasons they don't even understand. I do think there's an enormous opportunity to start moving it at the 14, 15, 16-year-olds who are going to be old enough to vote next election. And the way I would do that is I would talk about, I don't have time to reopen it here, I talked about it in A New Beginning on election night. But basically, the short form is we have a industrial age government trying to govern an information age economy, and that will not survive. There's no way it can survive. It is going to fail no matter who's in charge of it, Republican or Democrat. This giant bloated government's going to collapse. If for no other reason, then we can't afford it. The richest country in the history of the world cannot afford this government. This government costs more than the GDP of China, which is a communist state. So it's going to collapse. And I don't think it necessarily means it's going to collapse to the point where we're going to be sitting around burning tires, eating rats on spits. But it's not going to continue. This just not. So the question is, what comes next? And what I think comes next is we have to make the case for a government that is as tiny as it possibly can be, essentially a government that paves the roads, runs the Federal Aviation Administration, defends the country, and does very little else on the federal level. And the way you make this case is by saying that if you do it differently, if you build a parallel structure, you'll get it faster, better, and cheaper. Most of you have heard that old saw, older people have anyway. You go to a car dealership, like a repair shop or something. Occasionally you'll see this on the wall. You'll say you can have it fast, you can have it cheap, and you can have it good. Pick any two. You can have it fast and good but not cheap. You can have it fast and cheap but not good. You can have it good and fast but not cheap. But independently searching for the best deal on anything compared to the way the government works, because the government's just so horrifically inefficient, means that you can do it faster and better and cheaper, all three. It's a trifecta. So, for example, homeschooling is a better example of a parallel structure for education. If you don't like the LA Unified School District's indoctrination, homeschool your kids. It's getting easier because of this information age. We have a lot of online teaching aids now and should have the ability to network so that you don't have to teach every single day all the classes. You should be able to teach one class. Mrs. Johnson should be able to teach another. By the way, just since this is a point I want to hammer repeatedly, the great missing link, in my opinion, in the homeschool business right now, the great single untapped resource in America today, is our retired population. There are millions, tens of millions of people who have lifetimes of experience, who are very patriotic, very hardworking, who've had 40, 50 years in engineering and mathematics and science and so on, and they sit there with nothing to do. I don't know a single happy retired person. Well, that's not true. I know a couple. But most of them are very lonely and very sad. No one wants them to go back to work 40 hours a week. They've done their time. They're entitled to their retirement. But I'll bet you anything, man, if you found a way just in your local neighborhood as a homeschooler to get in touch with other homeschoolers and basically knock on some doors electronically or physically and find out that the guy who lives down in apartment 4D is a aerospace engineer who's been retired for a while, and if you asked him if he would like to come and teach some math or some science or some engineering classes, 2 hours a week for your high school kids who have self-selected to be there, I think he'd leap at it. I think he'd pay you. So that's a parallel structure of a better way to get an education than the government provides. I think, frankly, I don't know if it's against the law or not, but if you live on a little cul-de-sac or something and you're tired of your street being full of potholes, I think you should be able to basically get together with everybody else on the street, just knock on doors and say, hey, listen, we're tired of waiting for this. You know, it's going to take us 6 years before they pave the street, and when they do it, they're not going to do it well, and it's going to take forever. They're going to take, they've been working on the 405 freeway for 4 or 5 years now. And you drive down the 405 freeway, it's a 5, 6, 7, 8, no, who am I kidding? It's a 10-mile stretch that they're working on. And you will see 1 or 2 trucks working on a section of 200 or 300 yards of this 10-mile thing. And, all the lanes are constricted and everybody's backed up in traffic. It's taken 5 years because they want the union jobs to last forever. So if you want your street paved, right, your little corner cul-de-sac, why don't you get together with your neighbors, find out what it would cost from a construction company, get them to make you a deal, and pitch in and do it. You get it faster, better, and cheaper. Now, the problem is, of course, you're already paying taxes to pay that street. This is extra pay. Oh, it is illegal? You get fined a lot? That doesn't surprise me, Kelly. But anyway, you get the idea, right? These are the kind of laws that we have to make it unillegal. We have to make it legal then. We basically have to start saying that people should have a right to be able to do these kind of things on their own and privatize as much of society as we can and basically get out there and do as many things as we possibly can for ourselves. Because the beautiful thing about parallel structures is, Julian, that you don't have to give up on people. They're filled with despair and lethargy and so on because that's all they know. But if you put something bright and shiny next to something that's dull and nasty, people will go to the bright, shiny thing. If homeschooled kids get better scores, are happier people, then other people's parents realize that their children are going to be working for your children. They don't want that. You don't have to go and make them homeschool their kids. Once you see enough of the success of homeschool kids, they'll homeschool their kids themselves. And the more of a network there is and the less work it is, then better for everybody. They'll move on their own, especially when the ship is sinking. The great thing I used to tell when I did this What We Believe speech, I used to say that America's like the Titanic and we got to ram this iceberg. Well, America hit the iceberg and put a giant gash in it. And then the USS United States put the engines into reverse, backed up 4 or 5 miles, got ourselves up to full speed and hit the iceberg again. So it's time to get to the lifeboats now, folks. And we got to lash these lifeboats together and make it easier for people to do these things in a parallel way. Let's move on.